In Riverport, March smells like wet concrete, exhaust, and cheap whiskey. Here spring comes not with the sun, but with fog that drifts through the streets like forgotten promises. Even the sunrises in this town look tired, as if someone had been chasing them through the alleys all night and then letting them go in the morning without asking their names. Journalists don't become famous in places like this. They become cautious. My desk at the Riverport Gazette is an island in an ocean of papers, empty cups, and old tape recorders. On the wall is a yellowed clipping about a fire from 20 years ago, and on the windowsill is an ashtray with more ash than hope. Everything here is filled with anticipation, a call, news, a signal. But that day, the signal came differently. The flash drive, black, without any identification marks, lay in the most visible place like a challenge. No one saw who left it. Everyone in the editorial office knows everyone else, but no one admits to taking extra steps. I turned it over in my hand. The plastic was cold, as if it had just come out of the freezer. Inside was a single file. Sunset 17 recording.wav. The name made my heart skip a beat. Sunset Motel, room 17. 5 years ago, the name had appeared in police reports. Man found dead, case closed within a week. I was a rookie then, lacking the experience and connections to follow the story. But a journalist's memory is long, especially when the case smells like a lie. A click, and the speakers produce a viscous silence. Not the kind that happens at night when the city freezes, but thick, like oil. Then, the creak of a bed, a heavy breath. A man's voice, low, hoarse, speaks slowly, as if each word is given with a fight. If you're hearing this, it means it's too late for me. Sunset Motel, room 17. I did what I had to do, I'm sorry. 20 seconds and that's it. The recording ends, leaving behind the feeling that someone has just walked over your grave. The voice is unrecognizable, but there's something in it that won't let go. The intonation, the weariness. That's the way people speak who have carried other people's secrets for too long. I listened to the recording again. This time I didn't catch the words, but the pauses between them. In the pauses, the creaking of a bed, the noise outside the window, perhaps a train or a car. Heavy breathing, like a man who knows there is no way out. A name pops into my head. Richard Doyle. The man found dead in room 17. The official version, a heart attack. Closed, forgotten, buried under a pile of other cases. The Gazette archives are more than just filing cabinets. They are a swamp where the past does not drown but simmers beneath the surface. I went down to the basement where the lights flicker like old lanterns on the embankment and the air is thick as a soup of other people's stories. The Doyle Richard folder is thin, almost empty. A copy of the report, a couple of newspaper clippings, a photocopy of a passport. Everything is neat, sterile, as if someone had carefully cleaned out traces. No photographs, no notes in the margins, only dry lines. Body found at 7:15 a.m., room 17. Richard Doyle, 43, cause of death, acute heart failure. No signs of foul play. A newspaper article, 3 paragraphs. Man found dead at Sunset Motel. Police rule out foul play. Family declines to comment. Not a word about who first discovered the body, who was at the motel that night, who rented the rooms next door. Everything is too clean, too neat. The air in the newsroom is thick, as if before a thunderstorm. I call a friend in the police force, Jack Morgan, a former detective who now drinks more than he works. His voice on the phone is hoarse, like an old record player. "Mike, forget about Doyle. That case is dead. Let it lie." In this city, even the police are afraid to ask unnecessary questions. I return to the table. The flash drive lies on the papers, like evidence from another world. If you start digging, there will be no way back. But a journalist is not a profession, but a diagnosis. It is impossible to stop. Evening falls on the city like an old overcoat. Outside the window there is fog, in which the silhouettes of people hurrying home dissolve. I open my laptop and start writing. The story is already leading me along, like a ghost that cannot find peace. In this city, even the dead can talk. The main thing is to be able to listen. Night in Riverport is a special kind of darkness. It doesn't just hide you, it presses you down, makes you peer into your own shadows. I sit by the window, looking out at the street where the streetlights snatch the wet asphalt and the few passers-by from the darkness. The voice from the flash drive is spinning in my head, a short phrase that contains more despair than 100 police reports. Sunset Motel. The image of it comes to mind. The peeling sign, the neon lights that flicker even during the day, the smell of damp and cheap detergent. It was always too quiet there, like a morgue. I decide I'll go there in the morning, but first, the archives. The police report has the investigator's signature, Samuel Bennett. A name that means nothing. But in this town, even names can be clues. The notes include the motel manager's name, George Miller. He quit a week after Doyle died. The reason given is family reasons. In such cases, that almost always means saw too much. I searched the database for Miller's address. It's not hard to find. The town is small. There are few secrets if you know where to look. A chain is already forming in my head. Doyle, Miller, Bennett. One of them knows more than he said. Or didn't say everything he knew. The lights go out in the editorial office. I am left alone. Only the monitor glows in the darkness, like the eye of a tired animal. Outside the walls is night, viscous, drawn out, like the truth itself, which no one wants to know. In this city, even the archives can talk. The main thing is to be able to listen to their whispers through the years. The morning greets me with gray light and empty streets. Sunset Motel looks the same as it did 5 years ago. Peeling walls, a shabby sign, an empty yard. Inside, there is a smell of mold and cheap coffee. There is a new administrator at the reception, a young guy with indifferent eyes. He does not remember Doyle, Miller, or that night. He says that the cameras were not working then. Renovations. Asked to see room 17. He shrugs, gives me the key. The room is as expected, a cheap bedspread, stains on the walls, a window overlooking the railroad. Even time seems to have stopped here. On the wall is a mark from a nail where a photograph once hung. On the floor is a scratch, as if someone dragged a heavy object. All these are trifles that no one considers important, but the truth is always hidden in the details. I sit down on the bed and turn on the recording again. This time, I listen not only to the voice, but also to the background. The noise outside the window, the creaking of the bed, the distant whistle of a train. All of these are pieces of the mosaic that make up someone else's death. In this city, the past never dies. It waits for its moment to come to light again, sometimes in the form of a flash drive on a table, sometimes in the form of a voice that was never meant to survive. In the evening, I returned to the editorial office. On the table is a flash drive, Doyle's folder, notes. All this is now my baggage, my one-way ticket. The story is just beginning, and the city knows it. In Riverport, the archives aren't just repositories of paper and dust. They breathe. Here, in the basement of the city library, where the lamps glow a tired yellow and the floor creaks under every step, the past doesn't just sit, it watches. Within these walls, even the air seems older than anywhere else in the city. It's thick and viscous, saturated with the smell of mildew and cheap paper, and something else, anxiety, caught between the pages. The archivist, Mrs. Grayson, a woman, with a face like a dried-up apple, looks at me with weary disapproval. She doesn't like reporters, especially those who come unannounced and are looking for more than dates and names. "Are you back on old business, Mr. Hart?" Her voice sounds like the rustling of pages. "Sometimes the old haunts me," I answer, trying not to meet her gaze. A file with the name Richard Doyle sits on a shelf, like a forgotten ticket for a train that has long since departed. I open it on the table under the dim light of the lamp. The crime scene report. Everything is neat, almost sterile. The photographs are black and white, blurry, as if someone deliberately did not focus. One shows the room number 17. The door is slightly open. Inside is a shadow on the bed, more like a spot than a person. Another shows a hallway, empty, with a peeling wall and a spot of light from a lamp. The medical examiner's report contains meaningless statements: heart failure, no signs of struggle, time of death between 2 and 3 a.m. Signed, Dr. Lewis. At the bottom, a handwritten note. The cameras were not working. Cause, technical failure. The list of those questioned includes only 3 names: the administrator George Miller, the maid Linda Foster, and the neighbor in the room, a certain Mr. Peters. All the testimonies are short, as if the people were afraid to say too much. Miller claims that he heard nothing. Linda, that she found the body in the morning. Peters, that he slept soundly and did not notice anything. I write down names on a piece of paper. In such cases, the little things are always important. Who was nearby, who could see, who chose not to notice. In the folder is another paper marked official, a report from the officer who was the first to arrive on the scene. Resident Doyle was behaving quietly. In the evening, a man came to see him, tall, in a dark raincoat. They talked for a short time, then the resident was left alone. The cameras in the corridor were not. I close my eyes, trying to imagine that night. Doyle enters the room, throws his bag on the bed, turns on the dim light. A couple of hours later, a knock on the door, a guest in a dark raincoat. The conversation is short, tense. Then, silence. At 2:45, noise, a complaint from a neighbor, but no one reacts. Morning, and a body on the bed, face turned to the wall. Mrs. Grayson's voice is heard in the hallway. "If you're looking for something specific, Mr. Hart, ask. The archives don't like to be disturbed without reason." "I am looking for the truth," I answer without raising my head. "It's not in the archives," she whispers. "Only traces." I write down Miller's and Foster's addresses, Peters' name. In such matters, no detail can be overlooked. As I leave the archive, my gaze meets the mirror in the hallway. My face is tired, my eyes are red. In this city, even reflections look suspicious. It's raining outside, as if the sky had decided to wash away all the dirt from the city, but only smeared it on the asphalt. I walk to the car. In my head, voices from the reports, shadows in the photographs, names that say nothing, but no longer let go. In the evening, I return to the editorial office. On the table is a flash drive, Doyle's folder, a list of names. Inside there is anxiety, as before a storm. I call George Miller. His voice on the phone trembles, as if he were talking from a cellar. I didn't think anyone else would remember. Doyle, it's all been said, Mr. Hart. Not everything, I answer. You were there that night. Did you see a man in a cloak? Long pause. I saw him, but I don't remember his face. He didn't want to be remembered. Why weren't the cameras working? They said to turn it off. I didn't ask who said it. It's better not to ask questions in places like this. There is a fear in his voice that has not gone away even after 5 years. I write down every word, every pause. In such cases, it is not only the facts that are important, but also the shadows between them. Late in the evening, I call Linda Foster. She doesn't answer right away. Her voice is sleepy, tired. I just remember it was very quiet in the morning, she says. Motels are usually noisy, but there was no sound that time. I walked into the room and he was lying on the bed. His face was calm, like he was just sleeping. But I knew something was wrong. Did you see anyone at night? No. But I heard steps. Heavy, slow. As if someone didn't want to leave. I write down her words, feeling the puzzle begin to come together. In this city, even silence speaks louder than words. The night drags on slowly. Outside the window, rain, neon signs, rare cars. On the table, a flash drive, a folder, a list of names. All this is not just evidence, but keys to a door that someone really doesn't want to open. I listen to the recording again. Now I hear not only the voice, but also the background. The creaking of the bed, the distant whistle of a train, the sound of rain outside the window. All these are details that can tell more than any words. In this city, the past never dies. It hides in archives, in shadows, in voices that no one wants to hear. The main thing is to be able to listen. In Riverport, the night never really goes away, even when it's high noon. Fog clings to the streets like old gossip, lingering until it's squeezed out every last drop. In this town, everyone knows that if you dig deep, you'll find something you'd rather leave alone. But once you've heard the voice of the dead, there's no turning back. The list of names on the table, Miller, Foster, Peters, seems short, but it weighs like a death sentence. Behind each one is a shadow, and behind each shadow is a story no one wants to tell. In these matters, conversations are not just words. This is chess, where every pause is more dangerous than any move. The first in the chain is George Miller. His house on the outskirts has a peeling facade, an overgrown yard, a mailbox with more ads than letters. The door opens slowly, as if the owner is weighing whether to let him in or not. Miller has aged over the years. His face is lined, his eyes dart, his fingers tremble when he lights a cigarette. The living room smells of mold and fear. Are you talking about Doyle again? He doesn't look into my eyes. I've already told the police everything. Then why did you quit a week after his death? He is silent for a long time, takes a drag, and the ashes fall onto the table. because I realized there were things in this city that were better left unseen. That night, a man came, tall, in a long coat. I couldn't see his face, just a silhouette in the doorway. They spoke quietly, but I heard Doyle say, "You shouldn't have come." Then a door slammed, footsteps in the hallway. I didn't come out. I'm not a hero. Why were the cameras turned off? The gaze becomes glassy. I was told, just turn it off. No explanation. I didn't ask who said it. There is hopelessness in his voice. In this city, fear of the powerful is older than any morality. Linda Foster lives in a north side apartment building where the walls are thinner than secrets and the neighbors don't make eye contact. She opens the door cautiously, as if expecting bad news. "I don't like to remember that night," she says, inviting him to go into the kitchen. "After that incident, I couldn't sleep for a long time." On the table is a cup of unfinished tea. Next to it is an old radio from which jazz is quietly pouring. "It was very quiet," Linda recalls, looking out the window. "Usually a motel is noisy, but then there was no sound. I went to clean up in the morning. The door was ajar. Doyle was lying on the bed like he was just sleeping. But the room smelled of fear, not death. Fear. Did you hear anything at night?" "Yes. Steps, heavy, slow, as if someone didn't want to leave. I thought maybe one of the guests. And then silence." She trembles as she speaks, as if the cold in the room is seeping through the walls. "I saw that man leaving. He was in black. I couldn't see his face. But I remember he was looking at me, and I got scared. I told myself, forget it. But I couldn't. Peters, the roommate, has proven elusive. The archives contain only a name and an address that no longer exists. The search leads to a bar on the south side of town where the bartender recognizes the name. Peters? He comes here. He doesn't like to talk, especially about the past. If he comes, he'll find you himself. Waiting in such places is a separate torture. The smell of spilled beer, the hum of other people's voices, the neon light that makes faces, ghostly. The hours drag on like chewing gum. Finally, a man appears, stooped with eyes in which fatigue has settled. "You're looking for me," he says, sitting down opposite. "I can hear everything they say in town. Do you think I don't know why you're here? I'm looking for the truth about that night." Peters grins. "Really? In Riverport? Even the rain lies here." I heard noise in the hallway, shouts. Then, silence. I wanted to call the police, but Miller said, "No need." I didn't argue. "It's better not to argue in this town. Have you seen that man?" "No, just a shadow. But sometimes shadows are scarier than people." In the evening, I returned to the editorial office. On the table is a flash drive, a folder, notes. In my head are voices, fear, details. All this is not just information, but a web in which not only Doyle but also myself got caught. I turn on the recording again. This time, I catch not only the voice, but also the background. The creaking of the bed, the distant whistle of a train, the sound of rain outside the window. All of these are pieces of the mosaic that make up someone else's death. In this city, everything is connected. Everyone knows their place. Everyone is afraid to step out of bounds. But sometimes, someone decides to do so. And then the city responds, quickly, cruelly, without unnecessary words. The light in the corridor flickers. The editorial office gets cold. It seems that the walls are listening, that around every corner there is a shadow waiting for you to stumble. In this city, the connection is not only between people, but also between their fears. Here, the past does not die, but only changes form. Today is a flash drive on the table. Tomorrow, maybe someone's new death. All that's left is to dig further, because it's impossible to stop. Because once you hear the voice of the dead, you can't pretend you didn't hear it. In this city, even silence has a voice. The main thing is not to confuse it with your own. In Riverport, night and rain aren't just weather phenomena. They're the city's way of erasing its traces. Water washes away dirt, but not guilt, and darkness hides what shouldn't be found. Against this backdrop, every sound seems louder, every light more suspicious. The events of the past few days are like molasses, drawing you in deeper. In the newsroom, the only light is in my window. On the desk is a flash drive, a notebook, and a cup of cold coffee. Outside, the streets are empty, where even the cats try to stay out of sight. I listen to the recording again, this time with headphones on, my eyes closed, so as not to be distracted by anything but the sound. The voice is alien, but now, after all the talking, it seems familiar. There's something of Miller in it, something of Peters, something of me, weariness, fear, doom. But most importantly, it's in the pauses. In those brief spaces between words, there's something more. Breathing, a creaking bed, a distant knock, as if someone else were in the room besides the narrator. I turn up the volume, rewind, listen again and again. In one of the fragments, there is a short, barely perceptible sound. A click, as if someone were opening a knife or turning on a tape recorder. A thought flashes through my head. What if the recording was made not by Doyle himself, but by someone else? Maybe this is not a dying confession, but a warning. I meet Samuel Bennett, the former investigator on the Doyle case. He doesn't immediately agree to talk, but eventually we meet in a cheap diner on the outskirts. Bennett looks worse than in the archive photos. His face is drawn, his eyes are dull, his hands shake when he drinks coffee. I knew someone would start digging again, he says without looking up. In these things, someone always comes back. Why was the case closed so quickly? Bennett smiles crookedly. Because it had to be that way. Because they decided at the top, better not to stir up the dirt. Because in this city, if you ask too much, you quickly end up on the sidelines. Who was the man who came to Doyle at night? Long pause. I don't know. Or, I don't want to know. I was told not to interfere, and I didn't. The recording did. You hear it? Bennett sighs. No, but I heard that there was some kind of recording. It shouldn't have been. Someone wanted the truth to come out, but not the whole truth. In such cases, there is always a shadow. I return to Miller. He opens the door reluctantly, his gaze tired, fear in his eyes. I listened to the tape, I tell him. There's a moment where someone was in the room with Doyle, right? Miller looks down. I didn't want to get involved, I was just doing my job. But that night, a man came up to me. Said if anyone asks, the cameras weren't working, I didn't see anything, I didn't hear anything. I'm not a hero, Mr. Hart. I don't want to die for other people's secrets. Who is this man? Miller shakes his head. I don't know, or I don't want to know. I contact Thomas Doyle, Richard's brother. He doesn't answer my calls for a long time, but eventually agrees to meet. Thomas is a strong man with a heavy look. There is no hope or anger in his words, only weariness. My brother was no saint, he says, but he didn't deserve to die like that. I tried to get to the truth, but they quickly made it clear to me it's best not to pry. There are people in this town who decide who lives and who dies. Did you know there was a recording? No, but now I know, and it doesn't change anything. Why? Because here it is not the evidence that decides everything, but fear. Because if someone decides that the case is closed, it is closed forever. In the evening, I listened to the recording again, this time attentively until my ears hurt. At the very end, when the voice is almost dying away, I hear another sound. Quiet, like a sigh. As if someone is standing at the door, waiting for it all to end. I understand. This is not just a recording. This is a cry for help that no one heard or wanted to hear. It's getting cold in the editorial office. Outside, there's rain, neon signs, empty streets. On the desk, there's a flash drive, a notepad, a list of names. All of this isn't just evidence, but keys to a door that someone really doesn't want to open. In this city, the truth is always more valuable than life. I write down everything I've learned. I understand. The solution is close. All that's left is to take the final step and find out who really recorded that night in the motel and who is now ready to kill so that this recording does not see the light of day. In Riverport, even shadows can listen. The main thing is not to become one of them. The recording plays in my headphones like a spell that I can't escape. Every time the voice fades, the room gets a little colder. I'm sitting in the editorial office and the same rain is falling outside, but now it feels more personal than just the weather, as if the city is warning me it's dangerous to go any further. But there is no turning back. This whole story is like a lingering cough. The longer you try to forget, the more it presses on your chest. Evening. I enter room 17, Sunset Motel. They gave me the key without asking questions. They have long been accustomed to guests here who do not look for extra light. The room has hardly changed. Stains on the wallpaper, the creaking of the bed, the window overlooking the black railroad tracks. I sit on the edge of the mattress and turn on the recorder. Time has stopped. Names are spinning in my head. Doyle, Miller, Foster, Bennett, Thomas. Behind each one, fear. Behind each one, silence. I think about the fact that Miller never admitted who ordered the cameras to be turned off. That Foster still shudders at night from other people's footsteps. That Bennett drinks to forget, and Thomas has learned not to expect justice. I think about myself, about the fact that now I too have become a part of this story. On my phone is a draft of the article. Everything I could gather, testimony, details, a recording. I write the final paragraph, reread it, erase it, start again. The truth is not just words, it is a risk. It is the price you pay for other people's secrets. I send the article to the editor-in-chief. The answer comes quickly. Mike, are you sure? This is not just a story. This is war. I answer, I can't do otherwise. An hour later, my phone starts vibrating. First, a call from an unfamiliar number. I don't answer. Then a message. Stop before it's too late. Threats are not uncommon in Riverport. But this voice, cold, businesslike, emotionless, makes my heart beat faster. I realize I've already been noticed. I go outside. The air smells of dampness and fear. I see a car on the corner. The headlights are off. The engine is running. Behind the wheel is a silhouette. The face is not visible. I walk on, as if I do not notice anything. Inside there is emptiness, as after a long scream. In my head there is only a recording, only a voice that should not have survived. In the editorial office, I meet the editor-in-chief's gaze. He is silent, but there is concern in his eyes. "Mike," he says quietly, "if you continue this, no one will help you, I know. Then hold on." He leaves, leaving me alone with the empty office and my own fear. Night. I'm back in room 17. I turn on the recorder and speak into the darkness. If you're listening to this, it means I'm beyond help. The phrase sounds foreign, but it's mine now. I understand why Doyle wrote it down. I understand that sometimes the truth is a trap you can't escape from. Rain is knocking on the window. Miller appears on the threshold, pale, exhausted. "I came to warn you," he whispers. "They won't stop." "Who are they?" He shakes his head. "You know. You're too close." He leaves without turning around. I hear the door slam. His footsteps disappear into the night. There's a new message on my phone. "You've made your choice." I understand. Now I'm part of this chain. The room gets colder. I sit on the bed looking at the recorder. There's only one thought in my head. In this city, the truth doesn't save. It kills. In the morning, the editorial office is silent. The newspaper comes out with my article on the front page. Soon the police call, "Mr. Hart, you need to come to the station." Bennett is at the station, his eyes red, his hands shaking. "You don't understand," he whispers. "They're already here." "Who?" "The ones who were in the room with Doyle, the ones who were with you the whole time." I go outside. The city seems even gloomier than usual. The car is still parked on the corner. I walk towards it, slowly, as if in a dream. The window rolls down. Inside is a face that I don't recognize, but which seems to have known me all my life. "You've done all you could," says the voice. "Now it's your turn to be silent." Night. The lights are off in the editorial office. On the table is a flash drive, a dictaphone, an empty cup of coffee. In the air, only silence. In Riverport, even the truth dies quietly. The main thing is that someone hears its whisper before the light goes out completely.